Hey and welcome back to City Skylines 2. Today, as you might have already noticed, we've got something pretty massive planned. We're going to build our own custom cathedral from scratch. The inspiration for this came from the St. Peter Parish Church in Munich. And right next to it, we're also building my own interpretation of the so-called Viktualienmarket, which is basically just around the corner from the church. To give you some context, it took me roughly 6 hours to build the cathedral, plus time for creating custom decals, assets, and of course, dealing with a few game crashes. The market took around 4.5 hours to build. Normally, I really like to stream the game, but since it takes 10 to 15 minutes to start because of all the mods, and occasionally crashes then, streaming hasn't been the best experience lately. But anyway, let's get started with the street setup. Before tackling the church, I zoned another strip of houses. Also, I'm skipping some of the less important or repetitive steps at this time to keep things from getting boring for you. After all, this video still ended up being pretty long. Here I actually used the offices from the new Southwest America region pack, because, well, I really like them. I'm trying to build a German city, but I love sprinkling in a few modern elements here and there. It's kind of like this is how a modernized or well-planned city could look in the future. Now we're getting to the longest part of this video, building the church. I left almost all the steps in here. Occasionally, I only show one side being built, since it mirrors the other side. But I really wanted to take you all along on this journey, so you could maybe build something similar yourself. What I did not show was creating these huge custom walls in the editor, which are from the Japan pack, I believe. It's unfortunately really complicated working with mods in the editor, and I'm no expert either, but I've learned how to deal with some of the issues that might come up there. Honestly, there aren't enough videos that explain this stuff in a realistic, or not realistic, but understanding manner. Maybe I'll make my own small explanation video in the future, but that's for later. Who knows, by the time this video is out, I might actually be working on it already. The roofs of the towers are supposed to have that typical bluish shimmer, representing copper that oxidized over time, which you can find in a lot of Bavarian cities. I think this dome-style construction is really typical for that. I just wish we had a better editor so that creating these kinds of builds would be much easier and maybe even shareable. On the other hand, I like being able to say, hey, I built this myself and you won't be able to find it in any other city. I've also seen many City Skylines creators having fun recreating buildings and landmarks, but I haven't really seen anything as typically German as this. It's not the prettiest or most impressive church ever built, but for the tools I had available, I think it turned out pretty well. I might tweak a few things, especially with the windows, which I'm not too happy with. The main tower doesn't even have any windows at the front, which is a bit unrealistic, but that's extra work and I really wanted to get this video out to you guys. I also have to say the Ctrl-Z mod and the Move It mod are essential for these kinds of builds, even though they don't always work together perfectly. The Ctrl-Z mod is technically broken, but I still use it almost without problems. I had to remap the shortcuts because sometimes a different menu would plop up and I'd have to restart the game because it would break the copy and paste function of the mod. But since I changed the keys, I had no more issues. Still, I gotta say, Move It and Ctrl-Z don't always are compatible. For example, when I adjust the heights of objects and copy them, everything just squishes flat to the ground. But these are small issues and I'm grateful to being able to use all the advantages of the mods. Just think about everything I needed for this church. Static buildings, the recolor tool for the roofs, the line tool, tons of decals to make it look nice, and of course anarchy, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to place objects within within each other. And the list, well, goes on and on. It's crazy how many things you need now, and I think the list will only grow over time. Luckily, I came up with the idea to use gazebos as domes, and I'm glad I found that asset. It's the perfect piece to give the church that, church vibe. Before that, I would have had to use metal poles to make it work, and the roof we actually built earlier, I'll redo it in a few minutes, because I really wasn't happy with the look of it. Then we move on to a little border for the two domes. I choose a light gold color and used Move It to push it up to the towers. I generally build a lot of stuff on the ground first and then move it into place. If it doesn't fit, I undo it and make it smaller until it works. You can use this technique like a build helper, as you saw earlier with the roofs. When you place an object on top of each other with the right settings, they'll align to the asset surface. It can still be pretty annoying sometimes, but it's really cool when you start to see it come together, and the time spent feels worth it. The clock tower was another thing I had to figure out on how I wanted to make it. Instead of creating a separate asset, I used a large round table and I made the clock hands out of some sort of fire extinguishers. They are a little small, but I think in the end they still work for it. Then the fun part began. I actually copied the original windows from the church and slapped them onto a wall decal that actually wasn't mine. After that, I placed the whole tower with the wall decals, making sure to add some variation so it doesn't look too monotonous. At the end, I let the church get overgrown with plants, and it might not look as pristine as the original, but I didn't want it to look too clinical or clean. One thing I've noticed is that some people don't really pay much attention on how their city actually looks at night. But if you ask me, many elements of a city only really shine when it's dark, so I made sure the church was well lit and glowing at night. With that, the majority of the church was completed. Now let's move on to recreating the Viktualienmarkt in Munich. Sorry, went back to German for a second. Of course, we start with the street layout and the main square. I actually stumbled upon this place by accident, and as I was flying over it and walking through it with Google Street View, I got super inspired. The sheer number of fruits, vegetables and flower styles there is really impressing to me. And the way they are all set up is really beautiful. I wanted to bring that feel of a bustling farmer's market into my city as well. You definitely feel the limits of city skylines when it comes to decoration options, but I think I managed to capture the vibe pretty well. For the market stands, I used a mix of techniques. First, simply adding the base game kiosk and then providing them with little roofs or just placing tables with flowers or other stuff on them. Plenty of seating and little standing tables were also a must-have for this build. It's typical for Bavaria to have long benches scattered around, so I added those too. I also found small shop assets selling fruit, clothes or other things. When you recolor the fruits, you can make a colorful shop selling lemons, oranges, apples, plums, avocados, or anything else you can think of. I love those little shops with tons of fruits on display. We actually have a small market in the cloister garden near where I live, and you can get fresh fruit, veggies, cheese, meat and baked goods there every Friday. It has a really cool vibe to it. The rest of the park was then finished with surfaces over the main paths. I also added a few UK signature buildings along the edges because they reminded me of a typical Bavarian restaurant. I had to fill up the edges and the rest of the park, so I planted some trees and created some relaxation zones. I took inspiration from the real place, where a lot of trees make the square feel alive. I also added a small background in the center so parents can shop while their kids are entertained. Every now and then I broke up the surfaces with decals like road cracks, leaf from some trees, dirt and the occasional trash on the ground. It's just that when everything looks too clean, it starts to look unrealistic as well. And well, that really bugs me. Since Bavaria is famous for its beer gardens, I created a small grill bar to take up a large area. It's a big space, but I hope it still adds some variety. Next to it, I placed some service areas for all the trash that accumulates over the days. I made sure the trash bins were colored, typically German, blue for paper, black for regular waste and brown for organic waste. I also heard there's a green bin, but we don't actually have one in my area. Does anyone know about this or have one? Maybe you're from Germany? Then let me know in the comments. Anyway, back to the details. Added little touches, and I noticed while browsing through Street View that there are little crates, sometimes a few vehicles, and I kind of wanted to add them into my build as well. However, I think I actually forgot to put in some vehicles next to the shops. Well, whoops, maybe next time. Now we're getting to one of my favorite parts, which actually made me smile a few times. Placing the advertisements for the little stands. Some of them were really fitting and funny, and I even made a few custom labels for the signs. But the sizes are still a bit off, so I didn't go too crazy with them. After that, I used a new mod I installed earlier to make custom colored flowers for the area around the church and add some color variety. Finally, I covered the open spaces with green surfaces, packed them with trees, flowers and bushes, and added some of the people assets from Sully to bring the square to life. Now you can see people chatting, queuing or just observing the scene. We'll be finishing this episode like we started, with a few nice camera shots of the city, but before that we still have to build one more small residential area right next to the cathedral. It's pretty similar to what we've done before, but somehow I always manage to make these little blocks feel different. For this one I used bigger buildings and added the backyard asset from the Germany pack when I wasn't happy with the white walls. The leftover spots were either covered in graffiti or hidden with trees. I think the easiest way to cover up ugly spots is just to place an oak tree in front of them. Then I thought it would be a great idea to get a bit creative and create a larger connected building. Using the urban promenades and a low density commercial building, I created a pretty cute green residential complex. I even added a small terrace on the little roof over the entrance. Thought it would be a nice idea for a communal space where the residents could hang out a while. Lastly, let's finish up the church front yard. I finally added that beautiful fountain with the blue statues, which I originally wanted to use as a roof decoration for the church, but it was too big. I added a little border and some flowers around it. And of course, I didn't forget to add some road damages and a ton of people. These could be tourists checking out the city's landmark. I like to go over things again in the end and add a few lights so it shines bright at night.
You tell yourself you need to move on. shadows can ease your broken heart. They turn the volume up, you shut your mind. Wanna escape your thoughts for a little while, but when you close your eyes, I'm by your side, I'm by your side, right? You'll find me there.
The only thing left now is to rework the church roof again. Like I said earlier, I'm really not happy with the original look, but now I'm really pleased on how it turned out. And that's it for this episode, guys. As always, feel free to leave a like, comment and maybe even subscribe if you enjoy my content. Hopefully I was able to motivate you to try and create something similar in your city as well. Now I've got some cool cinematic shots of the city for you to end the video. Take care, guys, and see you in the next one.